Welcome to another episode of Heffron on History. Today we're going to talk about the Industrial Revolution and how this, the humble spool of thread, is going to eventually lead to this, your cell phone. Next on Heffron on History. Take out your spirally notebook, turn to a shiny new page in your spirally notebook, get a writing utensil, and write this down. The essential question for the Industrial Revolution is, how did inventions of the Industrial Revolution transform lives across the United States of America? This is, to me, the most fascinating point in American history. The Victorian era is what it's kind of referred to as, because Queen Victoria in Britain ruled through the bulk of the Industrial Revolution. If you were born at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, let's say you were born somewhere around 1800 in America, and you died after a ripe old age of, let's say, 90, so you lived through the 1800s, your life would be transformed more in that short lifespan than any other point in human history. Human lives completely transformed because of the Industrial Revolution. We're going to talk about some of the details of it coming up next. Okay, so let's get in with the details. The stories of history are the important parts. As I've always said, if you understand the stories of history, you should do quite well. The details, that's where the A's and the B's come in. We're going to talk about both. So we're going to tell you the stories of history through the details. As always, you need to know the what, the when, the where, the why, and the who, and how they interact with this story of history. So in the case of the Industrial Revolution, well, what is it? It's an age of mechanization. As I started to say at the beginning of this episode, the humble spool of thread, is a time-consuming, labor-intensive thing to create. I mean, we don't even think about how difficult the spool of thread is to create, but it truly is. And as the Industrial Revolution is progressing, it's getting easier and easier and faster and cheaper to make a spool of thread. Therefore, it's faster and cheaper and easier to make cloth, which means it's easier and it's cheaper and it's more affordable to get shirts and pants and coats. And that's going to really, truly change the world. It's all because of mechanization. What was done by hand in the past is now done by machines. When is this going to take place? Well, it's going to start in the early 1700s and really going to go until the mid 1900s, but we are going to concentrate where the bulk focus of this is going to be on the on the 1800s, where this is going to start in England. The Industrial Revolution is going to start in England, and then it's going to transform across Europe, and it's going to come to America. Why? Well, this is a question that my students ask me quite often. Why is this such a big deal? Well, because people made money off of it. There have always been inventions. There have always been times in human history where somebody invented something that a lot of people could use, but never really made a lot of money off of it. During the Industrial Revolution, that's going to change dramatically. We're going to go from having a wonderful idea for invention to getting rich off that invention. And when people start to see other people getting rich off of inventions, they want to start inventing things as well to see if they can get rich. And of course they do. And then that just spurs that growth, and it just snowballs from there. Who? There's a couple of people we're going to concentrate on, but we have to start really in 1733. A man by the name of John Kay invents a device called the flying shuttle, and the flying shuttle is a way of weaving cloth. It's a little wooden sled. It looks like a kind of a shoe kind of a thing. I will show you a picture of one in the episode as we're coming up here. but it makes weaving cloth really fast and really easy. That is the first, even though it's just a little piece of wood, it really truly makes things easier and makes mechanization possible. In 1764, a man by the name of James Hargreaves invents a machine called the spinning jenny. So here's what used to happen with a spool of thread. Your mom would spend the bulk of her life in front of a spinning wheel, half of her day, it seems like sometimes, making thread. In order to get a shirt, you first have to get the fabric. To get the fabric, you first have to have thread. Well, thread has to be made. You shear the sheep, you get the wool, you spin it into thread. Now when you have enough, now you can put it on a loom and you can make fabric, and from the fabric then you can make a shirt, right? He creates this thing, instead of spinning one spool of thread, it can spin dozens of spools of thread. It's still man-powered, it's still human-powered, but mechanization has now taken over making thread. A couple years later, James Arkwright, he's really truly considered the big name in the Industrial Revolution, because he sees this idea and he says, well, if we can make a dozen spools of thread at once, why can't we make hundreds of spools of thread at once? And so he builds a factory by a waterfall, and now water power is making hundreds of spools of thread all at once. At this point, James Arkwright is getting rich. At one point, I was in my research, I was finding he was making 200,000 pounds a year. Pounds similar to dollars, right? And he had 5,000 employees. The man was getting rich. One of his employees, one of his apprentices, was a man by the name of Samuel Slater. And Samuel Slater had a photographic memory. Now, it is illegal to export the machines that are making this. It is illegal to export the blueprints, the ideas, the concepts, anything to do with these machines. It's forbidden. It's against the law to export those, because England is getting rich, right? Britain is getting filthy rich off of cloth. Samuel Slater wants to get rich, and he's not going to do it in England. So he memorizes the machines and comes to America, makes them in America, creates the Industrial Revolution in America. He's in New England, and he's making mills that are making spools of thread, and eventually cloth, and eventually making the whole process of mechanization easier. So this has its roots in this. Without this, there is no cell phone, there is no automobile, there is no electric light, there is no television, there's no telephone, there's no microwave oven, there's no springs on your bed, there's no internet, there's no air conditioning without this. We'll get into some of the details in a second here. I know what you're thinking. My students every year are thinking the same thing. Big whoopity-doo. Why do we care? Well, before the Industrial Revolution, when your mom had to make thread, how long did it take? It took forever to spin the thread. It took forever to make the fabric on the loom before she could even make a shirt. So how many shirts do you think you owned back in the day before the Industrial Revolution? You may only own one. If you're dad, maybe you own two. If you're the 10th child or the 15th child, you've been getting hand-me-downs from your older siblings your entire life. And that's going to continue until you go out on your own and make your own money and make your own fortune, right? You may own one shirt. You may own one pair of pants. You may own one pair of socks. You may own one pair of underwear, and that's it. You may own one coat. You may have one blanket on your bed. I mean, it takes so long to make thread. You know, your mom just doesn't have time. Your sisters are helping your mom make thread. All the guys in the family, they're out on the farm and they're taking care of the animals and they're taking care of the fields and the crops. And the poor women are just spending their whole life cooking and cleaning and spinning thread. Right? So when the big deal with this, why? So what? What's the big deal? Well, now you can have 5 shirts. Now you can have 5 pair of pants. My gosh, how many sets of clothes do you have in your house right now? You probably have more than one set of clothes. So what? What's the big deal? If your mom isn't spending her whole life making thread, now she has time to do other things. And now if she has time to do other things, her life just got easier. Now I want you to think about this. If I live in, let's say I'm born in 1800 and my clothes are made by my mom and my whole family, those are the only clothes we wear, we don't have time in my family to do anything else. But now with mechanization, the Industrial Revolution has taken place. Now we can do other things besides the basic things that we have to do in order to have clothes to wear, right? So now we can go do other things to make more money. Now there's people who have businesses just making cloth. Now we have people who have businesses just making clothes. And that means the price of clothes drops and drops and drops and drops and drops. Even though the price is dropping, people are making lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money on clothes. So people are getting rich off of clothes. The price of clothes is dropping. And a man by the name of Eli Whitney, you should probably write this down, Eli Whitney, invents a device called the cotton gin. Now what the cotton gin does is makes this. My shirt happens to be cotton. You didn't have cotton shirts back in the day. You were wearing wool. And let me tell you, if you've never had a wool shirt, they're hot. And they're kind of itchy. And they hold body heat. And they're not the most comfortable thing to wear, especially if you live in a hot, sweaty place like, I don't know, Florida, right? And so people had to use wool because that's what there was. The other fabric that people used was linen, which is made from seeds, actually. It's made from the flax plant. So wool and linen. If you're in the Far East, then you had silk, but there wasn't a whole lot of silk in the United States of America. Eli Whitney invented a machine called the cotton gin. It's just a little hand crank machine. And what it does is it cleans cotton seeds out of the cotton fibers. People didn't grow cotton, right? The southern colonies, as we talked about before, grew tobacco. They could have grown cotton, but they didn't. Because it was so labor intensive to pull the seeds out of the cotton fibers. This machine does it just by cranking a handle. Dump the cotton in, crank the handle. It spits out the seeds and it separates all the fibers from it. And again, I'm going to show you a picture of this in a minute here. But the cotton gin makes a whole new fabric available. Most of you are probably wearing cotton right now. It's soft, it's comfortable, it breathes. When it's a hot, sweaty time in Florida, it's more comfortable than wearing wool, I assure you. So this is another thing that the Industrial Revolution, you wouldn't have a cotton shirt you wouldn't have blue jeans if it wasn't for Eli Whitney and the Industrial Revolution. So what? Hey, you just look in your bedroom. Look at all the layers of clothes that you have. Look at all the layers of fabric on your bed. This is all because of the Industrial Revolution. Picture is the spinning wheel. Dad and the boys in the family would be out on the out working on the farm, and they would take the sheep and they would shear the wool off of the sheep. That's the fuzzy fur of the sheep, and they would bring that into the house, and then this is what mommy would be doing, and grandmama and your sisters and your Aunt Bertha, and they would be turning that wool into thread. A thicker thread is called yarn. So if you're making something like a blanket, you want something with a little bit more oomph to it, so you would have a thicker thread. The second picture is the loom. Once you have the thread, well, now you need to make it into fabric. So you have threads going in perpendicular patterns to each other, and that's locking the fabric together. Look at all the threads in this picture. It takes a lot of thread. The next picture is the discussion of the flying shuttle. Now, a flying shuttle, it's a little wooden shoe-like thing, right? And each one has a different colored thread attached to it. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the flying shuttles. And basically what's happening is you have all these different threads. And again, look at all the threads on this loom. The flying shuttles are going to go back and forth between the threads on the loom, and they're gonna lock the fabric together. The next picture is a picture of a loom, and this is kind of showing where the flying shuttle is going. Again, look at all the threads. The flying shuttles are going to go back and forth from left to right in this image, changing the colors as you go by selecting different flying shuttles. This used to be done by hand, right? This used to be done by bringing those threads back and forth by hand. Now the flying shuttle is sitting inside a little track, and you can just shoot it back and forth. I mean, you can literally push it back and forth. It takes very little time with a flying shuttle to move these threads to make this fabric. Next, we have a picture of James Hargrave's spinning jenny. This is from 1764. So it takes a long time on a spinning wheel to make threads. So this machine now makes a whole bunch of threads, dozens of threads, dozens of spools of thread all at once. Again, it's hand powered, so it's the same process as the spinning wheel, but now you can make a lot more of it faster. Enter the subject of Richard Arkwright. Now, Richard Arkwright is going to take that spinning jenny, and he's just going to go crazy with it. He's going to create a system where you can make not only dozens of spools of thread at once, but hundreds. And it's no longer human powered. Now what he has done is he's built a mill. He's built a factory next to a river, right? And the moving river is powering a water wheel, which is powering the water frame. This mechanization is going to change. This is really truly where the Industrial Revolution begins, because he's going to get rich off of this. He's going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's going to have thousands of employees, and people are watching this. People are seeing that this man is getting filthy rich, and now they want a piece of this. They want a piece of this action, right? They want to get rich too. So they're going to start looking for ways of using this water-powered source in order to drive machinery in factories. This is where the factory is born. Everything that we know and love today, that makes our life easy, that makes our life convenient, those are all made in factories. There were no factories truly before Richard Arkwright created the water frame. Once we have a a power source that can power a lot of machines, that's where factories are born. That's where the Industrial Revolution begins, and that's going to make him rich and people making inventions following him rich. This is a picture of the water frame. Now, if you look, there's just hundreds and hundreds of spools of thread. This is the machine that is going to revolutionize human existence. The Industrial Revolution is going to start with this machine. Next, we have Samuel Slater. Samuel Slater has two nicknames. In America, we call him the father of the Industrial Revolution in America because in 1789, he's an apprentice of Richard Arkwright, and he sees these machines cranking out all kinds of thread, right? And he wants to get rich off of this deal, right? He sees Richard Arkwright getting rich, and he wants part of this action. He's not going to do it in England because England is pretty well saturated with these machines by the time Sam Slater comes around. So Sam Slater is going to go to America and make his fortune in America. Well, he has a plan to bring these machines to America, but that's illegal. You cannot export the machines. You can't export drawings of the machines. You can't export parts to the machines. You can't export blueprints. You can't export any of the techniques. Samuel Slater, fortunately for him, has a photographic memory. So he simply memorizes how these machines are put together, how they are built, how they are made. And when he comes to America, he makes them. And he makes a factory in New England, and we're off to the races. Once factories making thread come to America, and again, it's along the rivers, it's water powered, it's the water frame, that's what he's creating. And once that starts, America is going to explode into the Industrial Revolution. By the way, he has a second nickname, and that is, if you are in England, he is considered Slater the Traitor, because he stole these ideas, and he's a traitor to the Industrial Revolution in Britain. The next picture I have is of Eli Whitney. Eli Whitney is going to invent a machine called the cotton gin. The cotton gin in the next picture, it's a hand-cranked engine. Gin is short for engine. Now, we think of engines being gasoline-powered, but an engine is simply a machine, right? It's simply a mechanical device. And in the case of the cotton gin, it's a hand-cranked machine. Now, what happens here? Cotton seeds, a cotton fabric. If you think of a cotton ball would have is roughly the size of a head of cotton, right? But there's seeds in there, and they're buried deep inside the fluff. So you have to separate the seeds from the fluff of a cotton plant, and that's very time consuming, and it's not the easiest thing to do, and you don't want to waste the cotton fibers in the process. Plantations were growing tobacco, they were growing indigo, they were perhaps growing sugarcane, they were not growing cotton. Even though you have unlimited resources of labor with the slaves, it takes too long to separate the seeds to make it profitable. So plantation owners didn't grow cotton. Well, once the cotton gin is invented, and now you can simply separate the seeds by cranking this wheel, now it's really easy to separate the seeds from the cotton, and this is going to make a dramatic shift in the United States. Plantations all over the country are going to shift from growing tobacco to growing cotton. And once you have this brand new, much more comfortable fabric to make clothes with, the clothing industry in the United States is going to explode. The clothing industry is going to add to the Industrial Revolution. It's going to add to the speed of the Industrial Revolution. It's going to add to the complexities of slavery, which we will get to in another episode of Heffron on History. But this is where the Industrial Revolution begins. And again, everything that that makes your life comfortable and convenient and inexpensive, they all come from this humble little spool of thread. All right, so let's give a little conclusion to this story of the Industrial Revolution. Without the Industrial Revolution, imagine what your life would be without things that are responsible or that are possible because of the Industrial Revolution, right? From your cell phones to the automobile, the electric light, microwave, air conditioner, your bicycle, the steel plow. Well, who cares about the steel plow? Well, that makes all the food that we have in the United States easier to grow. Therefore, we can have more of it. The sewing machine. How are you going to put the fabric together to make a shirt without sewing it together? The sewing machine had to be invented. The vacuum cleaner. Do you like dirt and dust in your house? You probably don't. You sure don't in my classroom because you put dust and dirt on my floor all the time. The curling iron. Perhaps you have lovely curled hair. Crazy things. You don't even think about being part of the Industrial Revolution, but they are truly because there was an Industrial Revolution. There would be no Tylenol without the Industrial Revolution. There would be no toothpaste without the Industrial Revolution. There would be no Coca-Cola without the Industrial Revolution. There'd be no McDonald's without the Industrial Revolution. There'd be no Walmart without the Industrial Revolution. I want you to look around the classroom. Look at the things that were manufactured. Plastic would not be around without the Industrial Revolution. How many things in the classroom that you're sitting in right now? You're probably sitting on a plastic chair right now. How many things are made of plastic? That's Industrial Revolution. All the things in your house that are as a result of the Industrial Revolution. It truly is going to change the world. If you were born in 1800 and your mom is making your clothes with a spool of thread, right? She's spending her whole day. And by the end of the 1800s, if you lived to the full end of the 1800s, the automobile is around, the airplane is around, trains are around. Life has just dramatically changed. Until next time, Heffron on History.